Hey everyone, this is Jeff Kohler. I'm going to be your host for the webinar today entitled Plant Growth Technologies and Research, sponsored by NASA's Technology Transfer Program. My job at Kennedy Space Center is to support the tech transfer program, and I work with scientists like Jacob Torres, who will speak soon. Now, I met our presenter, Jacob Torres, about a year ago, and he submitted a new technology called a plant nutrition system. And we reviewed it and thought it was a good technology to market. And I've continued to visit Jacob in his lab, and he's been one of our prolific investors developing a lot of technology. Jacob is an engineering and horticultural hybrid who brings a technical perspective into growing crops for food production here at Kennedy Space Center. He was raised in a traditional farming community in northern New Mexico for a year in horticultural and crop experience, working on his family's land. He's a mechanical engineer by education, but his focus now is on the application of technology, automation, and controlled environments to support plant biology. Following Jacob's presentation, I'm going to give a quick few slides on how NASA licenses technology to outside organizations, and also mention an opportunity being planned for NASA's Centennial Challenge. I'd also like to point out your microphones will be muted throughout this presentation, so if you have any questions, please just type them in the chat box on your screen, and we'll answer those at the end of the presentation. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jacob, who, by the way, some of you may have seen on NASA's Twitter in the last year.
Hi everybody, my name is Jacob Torres and I'm a research scientist at NASA Kennedy Space Center. And today I'm speaking to you from one of the plant growth chambers at the Space Station Processing Facility, where we are growing peppers inside a controlled environment. Now, peppers are a candidate crop for us to grow in space for several reasons. The most important one is there are no pollinators in space. There are also no bees inside my controlled environment. So anything that we will grow will need to require no pollination, would be easy to pollinate, or be self-pollinating. And the cool thing about peppers is that you can tap on one of the flowers, and within a day or so, you'll have a pepper growing. It's really cool. The next thing is there's a lot of nutrients in peppers that are important to our astronauts, like vitamin C and creatine. And then third, there are only so many meals that we send up with the astronauts, and they're really good meals. But imagine eating the same thing over and over again. To have something fresh, like a fresh pepper to bite into with a little bit of spiciness, can make your life just a little bit happier while you're exploring space. So we, as NASA, are working on one project called Hatch to ISS, where we want to grow peppers, the New Mexico pepper, inside the advanced plant habitat. It'll be a technical demonstration that'll go on in 2020, and this will be our opportunity to grow peppers in space. So take a look around the chamber, and in here we're growing different peppers, seeing how they perform under the high CO2 environment. And thank you so much for visiting me today at the Space Station Processing Facility. Take care.
Hey, hello everybody. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Jacob Torres, and Jeff, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, and really excited that I get to share one of my pepper videos. And let's get on with the presentation. So I've put together a little bit of an agenda for today so everybody knows what to expect and what we're going to do, talk about. And yes, everybody's here to see the new technology. I have a passive porous tube nutrient delivery system that has a provisional patent and is available for licensing, and that's towards the end of the presentation. But I wanted to take this opportunity to share some of the capabilities and the experiments that we're doing in our PPA labs at the Space Station Processing Facility at Kennedy Space Center. So I'm really excited to share all this stuff today, and let's check it out. So I work with this wonderful team. Like I mentioned, we are based at the Space Station Processing Facility at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And Our mission is to grow crops to eventually supplement astronauts' diet on deep space missions, later on the moon, eventually on Mars. And it's a really cool mission, but along the way there's a lot of things that we need to learn. In particular, growing plants in a microgravity environment and in controlled environments. There's a lot for us to learn. So we have two systems on the International Space Station where we're working to learn these kinds of things. And one of them is veggie, and you can see it in the top left picture. I kind of call this veggie moment. Here's where the crew actually got to eat some of those tests that we do. In the middle there is a picture of our ground control. And this is where our team, Nicole and Brian Onyate are in there, gets to communicate with the astronauts and ground control to implement the experiments and direct the astronauts on different things that are going on. And then on the right is a picture of the advanced plant habitat. And the advanced plant habitat uses technology and automation to control the environment and set parameters for whatever experiment that we're doing. And in there you can see a Arabidopsis growing as part of THO1, one of the first experiments that we do in there. But our overall goal is to supplement the crew's diet with fresh, nutritious food. And we'd also like to add in some nutrients into their diets, like vitamin C, vitamin K, and vitamin D. To implement this wonderful work, there's a science team that is put together that works at the Space Station Processing Facility, which I'm part of. And it's a unique joining of talents where there's biologists, microbiologists, horticulturists, engineers, technicians, and hybrids like me who work to do all the things that it takes to support veggie and the advanced plant habitat, and then to develop plant growth equipment that we will use in the future. This lab is very much directed and ran by Michelle Spencer, who is our lead horticulturalist. And pretty much, I follow Michelle around. It's my job to support her work. She is the one who interprets how to take this mission and make it into individual experiments and other things that we need to do. And as a plant growing engineer, I get to design things and implement plant growth experiments and pretty much show some of the things that I'm going to show here to you today. Now, as Jeff kind of mentioned in the beginning, my name is Jacob Torres, and yet I'm a research scientist with a company called Momentum, and we work on a contract called LASSO. You know, interesting, today I opened my Facebook feed, and it showed me that today is my 2-year anniversary. So I've been at Kennedy Space Center for 2 years, and this is a cool thing to do on the anniversary of that. I came in as a NASA NIPS intern. I started in the summer of 2018 while I was writing my thesis at Purdue University. I applied for an internship. I was so excited to apply to get a call back, an interview, and I was even more excited that I actually received the internship. And it went really well. I applied again, and I received the second internship in the fall of 2018, and then at the end of that, there was a job opening available. I applied, and I received the job, and here I sit before you today. It's so exciting. I wrote my thesis at Purdue University on botanical air filtration. The biowall is essentially a controlled environment that uses technology and automation to grow plants, and that's a lot like what NASA is doing to grow crops. I started in the industry as a value product introduction engineer at Cummins Inc., where I did my part to design, validate, and prototype a 15-liter ISX 15-liter diesel engine. And what engine is that? You see the semi-trucks on the freeway? There's a good 30 to 40% chance that if you open the hood, that it would be one of these ISX engines underneath it. And I was born and raised in New Mexico, so I got my bachelor's degree at New Mexico State University. And I started at the local community college, Northern New Mexico College, where I kind of collected associate's degrees for a little bit. I was really interested in working on cars and renewable energy systems. So that's how I started my academia career, is working on those types of systems. And then kind of some personal things that I did. In 2019, a team of interns and I submitted an idea to the NASA Big Idea Challenge, and we were one of 5 finalists. It was so cool. And then now I'm working on a citizen research project, the Space Chili Grow Pepper Plant Challenge, where I'm challenging everybody, the whole public, even you, to grow a pepper plant in your home and work with us and follow us while we work to grow peppers in space. With that, I have a little video showing our mission board in the plant processing area, and so I'm going to share it with you guys.
So in our lab here at the Space Station Processing Facility, we have a board here that lays out our mission and what we are doing and why we are doing it. And it's all related to growing crops to supplement astronauts' diets on in low Earth orbit, in deep space missions, and on other extraterrestrial bodies like the Moon and Mars. So what this board is showing is ultimately we want to end up on the surface of Mars growing crops to supplement the astronauts' diets. But on the way to getting there, there's a lot of things that we need to do. And starting over here on the ground, here on Earth, in this room right here and many others, in the Space Station Processing Facility, we are learning how to grow crops, the science of building the equipment and the things that we need to do to grow crops in space and then on deep space missions. Currently, we have the space station, which is right up here, and up on the space station is veggie and the advanced plant habitat. And in there also, we are learning the science and the biology of growing plants and crops in space, in microgravity. Once we learn that science, then we could apply it to a larger scale to supplement an astronaut's diet. The Artemis missions are to go back to the lunar surface. So we want to go back to the moon, and on that surface of the moon, we will be doing all kinds of science. But part of that will be the Gateway space station. And the Gateway will hover in a halo orbit around the moon, and it'll be our gateway to the stars and the rest of the universe, like to Mars. And so in Gateway, we'll have a Gateway garden. We'll grow plants and crops in there as well. We'll learn what we can, and ultimately, when we compile all this work, it'll be what will get us to the deep space mission to Mars, which could be minimum 6 months to a couple years of a trip. We'll land there, grow our crops, and then end up on the way back. So this is our mission for the next 10 to 15 years. This is what we want to do, and this is why I am doing what I'm doing.
So I don't know if I'm allowed to say thank you to myself, but thank you, Jacob. That was a good breakdown. So yeah, that was a breakdown of our mission and a board that we have in our lab in the Space Station Processing Facility. And now I'm really excited because I get to show you some of the individual things that we're working on to achieve that mission that I laid out. One thing I talked about was the Artemis mission and going back to the moon. And it's related to growing plants on the moon. It's only a matter of time before something fails. And if you're an astronaut or you're a crew member that's working to the moon and something fails, you can't go out to the local store to buy a new part. Couldn't Amazon Prime, at least not yet. NASA could launch up spare parts, but that could be costly when you're considering all the systems that are up there in space. So is there another technology or something that we can employ that will help fill this need? One thing that I'm demonstrating in the labs and that I get to do is 3D printing, and I'm performing a plant growth experiment in my lab. And this one, for example, I'm showing on the top there, is a hydroponic system, an NFT channel, and I have an acid addition pump which controls the pH. It was working so hard that the parts completely disintegrated in there. So after thinking about what do, I went on Google and how long will it take to get the part here? 2 weeks to get the part in. So I had the choice of a couple things. Can I accept the variation in my experiment now that I have to hand mix the pH, or should I stop this experiment altogether? Those were unacceptable to me. So what I did was break out a piece of the pair of calipers, recorded some dimensions. I sent those drawings and dimensions out to say the ground crew, who was actually Fairchild Botanical Gardens, the student there. They sent that drawing back. We put it into a 3D printer. By the end of the day, I had an exact copy of the disintegrated part, put back in the pump, and we were running back in business in no time. This is the kind of practice that I do in my lab, and maybe it's a demonstration of things that can be done on the lunar surface when we get there to make our experiment successful. Now, my very first video, I got to talk about peppers and why peppers are so important to NASA and why we're growing them. NASA's grown a wide variety of leafy greens and self-pollinating crops up to this point, but we want to move up to fruit and other things. And peppers serve their purposes for the reasons that I mentioned in the video, and this is going to be our chance to demonstrate it in an experiment called PH04, or Hatch to ISS. PH means plant habitat, which is actually short for advanced plant habitat, and then 04 means it's the fourth experiment or event that we've done in that space. And then Hatch is a farming community in southern New Mexico, which is famous for its peppers, and we're going to send those peppers up to the International Space Station. This will be a technical demonstration of the advanced plant habitat, where we'll show the capabilities of this system by growing peppers within it. And when you're going to grow a pepper, what pepper do you choose? How do you select which one you're going to send, and how does that come about? The first thing, and part of my training, and what we did as a team, is hit up the literature. Take a look at the literature and see what work has been done and has been demonstrated. And anybody looking into pepper literature and research is bound to run into New Mexico chili at some point. New Mexico chili is not only a cuisine in New Mexico, but is also part of the culture. So graduate students, professors, and teachers have been writing theses and dissertations on growing peppers and all types of varieties for over a century, and that served well for our purposes. So what happened was, ultimately, Michelle reached out. She got as many pepper seeds as she could, not only from New Mexico, from all over the world. And we grew them in our Greenworks lab. We grew them in controlled environments, simulated space station environments, and ultimately there was one pepper that served our purposes really well, one pepper that grew within the confines of the advanced plant habitat while still giving us fruit to pick, and it's a pepper called the Espanola Improved. This is a hybrid pepper between the southern New Mexico Big Jim and the traditional northern New Mexico Espanola pepper, which is really exciting. So growing peppers is a big step for NASA, and it's also a huge positive event for the community in northern New Mexico, Espanola, which also happens to be my hometown. So we're really stoked about that one. And I'm showing pictures of the APH. On the left is PH01. And then in the middle here is Espanola Improved peppers growing in Greenworks, and then to the right is where we're trying out everything that we will do on the International Space Station, just here on the ground in our engineering development unit. Cool, now I get to get into some of our capabilities. Some of the things that we have inside our labs that are special and helps us to grow crops. And in particular, I just talked about the advanced plant habitat, and one of the things that makes it so advanced is its lighting and LED system. In the APH, you're able to adjust the frequencies of the colors of LEDs, increasing the reds, the blues, the whites, and the greens, and even some UV to create a recipe that works specifically for the crop that you're growing. And that's a great capability. Before we do anything on the International Space Station, we'd like to try it down in our labs as much as possible and hopefully make our mistakes on the ground before we send it up to have the crew work on it, which means that we needed the same capability in the labs that we did in the advanced plant habitat. So what NASA did and my team did is we worked with a company called Osram. Osram put together an LED light bank with all the different colors and frequencies that we needed, and then a software that allows you to control these frequencies up and down. So Michelle can get in and she can adjust the frequencies and make a specific light recipe for whatever we're growing, whether it be leafy greens, lettuce of some sort, or even peppers. And in my picture here, we're actually showing one of our postdocs, Matthew Mickens, Dr. Photon. I'm really excited to have him in one of my presentations sites. So I talked a little bit about how it will be important, and it will be so important to use technology and automation with growing plants in astrobiology. And ultimately, it's to help the crew out. There's only so many crew members. They have a lot of things to do. Growing crops will not be like a primary thing that they'll have time to do, and anything that we can do with technology or automation and ground control to help them out would lead to a more successful mission. And one of those things could be using hyperspectral imaging to monitor our crop health. And this is something that we're developing in the lab today. If we could quantify and identify what a stressed or droughting plant looks like, then we can take that information and command, say, an irrigation or nutrient delivery response. Using this technology and developing it can stand in the place of a crew member having to go in and check and see if the plants are okay, and ultimately, if it's developed to a certain sense, it may work better than the own human eye. Speaking of irrigation, when we went up to space, one of the first things that we learned was that delivering water and nutrients to a plant's roots when there isn't gravity is a huge challenge. It really is. And we're showing a picture there with Commander Hatfield on the left from the Canadian Space Agency. And he's wringing out a paper towel or a towel with water. And you can see how that water is forming around the towel and even his fist. The same kind of thing happens to our roots up in space. And what I didn't know until I got here is that the roots actually need air, an aerated nutrient solution to breathe and grow strong. So delivering and making an irrigation method for microgravity is a big need. Now, hydroponic systems that exist, and there's a lot of them out there, are inoperable. At least some of the ones that we have explored are inoperable in microgravity. And we realized very quick that we needed to set up an experiment, a test bed or an area for us to test out candidate microgravity irrigation systems against a control system. So in the center there is our water delivery for microgravity test bed. It's a controlled environment where we simulate the space station environment, essentially by pumping in a high CO2 content. We maintain a consistent environment and lighting throughout each system, and we can take candidate irrigation systems and compare them to our control nutrient film techniques. And so when we sat down and said, okay, we have to design a system, what should this system take, or what should it have? And if we made an irrigation system for microgravity, it should be sustainable and the components be reusable. Instead of having to throw media away, maybe you can have something that plants can grow on, you can clean it, and then start over again. To design and build a system that requires low energy consumption in electricity or even heat addition into the environment that has to be dissipated, that would be a really good thing. A system with minimal failure mode, like with few valves and ports that can fail. And we also saw in my 3D printing slide that the pump is the first thing to go. So if you can make an irrigation system without a pump, that would be awesome. A system with reduced crew interaction. So a nutrient film technique hydroponic system requires interaction from the team member or the crew member just about every day to check the nutrient levels, the pH, and the water levels and other things. If you can make a system that doesn't need that much interaction, that would be totally awesome. And then finally to have a system that's scalable. It can work really small and you can do science on it, and then you can scale it up to do crop production and grow a lot of whatever you're growing. Ultimately, what we came up with is the passive porous tube nutrient delivery system, and this is the technology. There's a patent pending on this. This is available for licensing, and it's available to the industry. And essentially what it is it's an innovation onto another microgravity candidate system, the porous tube nutrient delivery system, which is active. It has pumps that moves water through the porous tubes. Instead, the passive porous tube system takes the pumps away, and it uses the capillary force of water to pull wick water up to the tubes. And it utilizes a porous tube, which is a biofilter. It's used to filter things out of water. And then I wanted to use things that were ready available on the International Space Station, so we got an International Space Station water bag and connected them in a loop with our hoses. And ultimately what I did was we placed some seeds on top of the tubes and wrapped the tubes with a wrap so the roots can grow around them, and added some water, timed out the air, added light, and we were very lucky to have some of our crops grow on them. But this system was derived with my mentor at the time, Dr. Thomas Dreschel, and he and I had been talking about a system like this for a little while, and it was only a matter of time before I had a bright idea, and before I knew it, we had a prototype. I had a prototype made, and I was excited to show it to him. And it met some of the requirements that we were after, where it doesn't require electricity, you don't have to plug it in, there isn't a pump. It has no functional moving parts. And then crew interaction is very minimal with this system. Once you get it going, it keeps going. And my picture to the right here, I'm showing just a demonstration of different crops that I grew on the porous tube on the passive system. I have Lunar mustard, outrageous lettuce, and I'm growing some peppers on the top there, and we've grown some other things. I wanted to give everybody an opportunity to see the TTNDS in action. And so here's some pictures of different grow-outs that I've done with different crops. And to the top left there are red robin tomatoes at day after plant 111. So it's a long time. And we have red tomatoes, the plants look really good. And this was the test that told us, hey, maybe you should put this in the water delivery test bed. This might be a great candidate for microgravity. So it was this first test with tomatoes that said, hey, we should try this out. And what we did is we added it into the test bed. The bottom left here, we were growing outrageous lettuce in one of our other water test delivery rounds. And it grew lettuce successfully throughout the 28-day experiment. This one was to grow 10 plants. Each system had 10 plants, and we successfully grew those 10 plants. The top right, I'm showing some peppers, and yes, they are some pitiful-looking peppers. I know that's true, but here's the thing. As a horticulturist, I am someone who starts a plant growth experiment, and sometimes I don't get back to it for a little while. And the cool thing about this system was that I forgot about this cube for weeks, maybe months, and when I came back, even though I didn't take care of it, there were still peppers growing on it, and I was happy to have that one pepper instead of none at all. And then on the bottom right here are red robin tomatoes growing in the water delivery test bed. These are 6 different plants in the high CO2 environment, and they did grow through the duration. And I'll talk about a little bit of some of the raw data that we found with that experiment. So this is the one speaking about the red robin tomatoes in water delivery, and you can see the picture of it there right in the middle. And I wanted to make a comparison with our controlled system, which is the nutrient film technique, hydroponic channels. There's 2 of them, and we're growing 6 plants on each system. And comparing the NFT to the passive PTNDS, the NFT consumes over 300 liters of water, where the passive system consumes 76. So I had to mix 316 liters of Hoagland solutions throughout the duration of the experiment. With the hydroponic system, with the passive system, I didn't have to do all that work. That was great for me. Edible mass, the amount of tomatoes that we were able to pick and eat from this system, 3,500 grams on the NFT system and approximately 2,000 on the passive system. The area consumed by 6 plants, so the experiment was to only grow 6 plants, and with those 6 plants, the NFT system consumed 100 centimeters squared. The PTNDS consumed 30 centimeters squared. And then to the bottom left there is crew interactions. How many times did I have to go in, or would an astronaut have to go in and give attention to the system? During this round, the NFT, 78 visits to 62, and we were very, very diligent with our experiment. It's part of my job to go in and check on it every day, but I could have left it alone if I really wanted it to. So what does all of this mean? The passive PTNDS can support plant growth over a long period. And I've been successful at growing lettuce, tomatoes, peppers, and more. Regular hydroponic nutrient solution interaction is not required. So in an NFT system, you have to replenish water, adjust the pH, adjust the electrical conductivity or the nutrient level, just about every day. So that leads to water consumption is about a fraction of the NFT, which is 25%. So plants are physically smaller on the passive system compared to the hydroponic system. It's about 25% of the area consumed between the NFT, and but maybe you can fill that area in with more plants. And then the edible biomass, with 25% of the nutrient solution used, 25% of the area used, you get 2/3 of the fruit biomass, which is a pretty good result. And then 20% less crew interactions, and really, because we are so diligent with our time on that system, that we can bring that down. And then an informal taste testing of the passive system between our team. One of our team members, Aaron, went around and gave everybody a blind test of all these fruits from our different systems. The passive PTNDS grew the most favored tasting fruit. And then I'm just showing here at the bottom that NASA has filed a provisional patent and is applying for a non-provisional patent for this technology. Possible applications. So this is just my views or my vision. Like, what would you do with this system? For the industry, this could be a low maintenance, a low interaction growth method, maybe for vertical or warehouse farming, leafy greens. That top row in the vertical farm that is hard to get to, a passive system would be great to grow up there. You plant the seeds and come back 28 days when they're done. Education. So my mom is a teacher. I am an educator. And I know that if you're implementing a plant growth experiment inside of a classroom, even though you have these wonderful students who come and check on them all the time and things like that, it's just great if you have a plant growth system that runs itself, that continues to grow while you teach the class. And then for the public, a standalone little plant irrigation platform. Maybe it's to grow herbs. Maybe it's to put in the window, a novelty item. It could even say developed in NASA. Something like that, like the chia pet that the public would really get into and growing in their homes and offices and other things. So in my presentation, I was able to share the mission that we're doing at NASA to grow crops from the International Space Station and then eventually supplement astronaut facts along the way. We got to see some of the capabilities that we have. I shared some of the experiments that I'm doing, which I'm really excited about, and then some of my team members and the work that they're doing also. There's a lot of work that's been done, and it's important to take a minute to send some acknowledgments out. And number one, I have to do a shout out for our American heroes, in particular, David Henderson, Kendo, who I believe is on this call right now. He's a veteran of the Afghanistan War. He has at least one Purple Heart, if not two. And while I went to college and did my thing, my friends went off to war and fought for me, and I really appreciate that they did that. I get to sit here and present today because of their sacrifice. NASA brought me into this team, and they have been behind me 100%. These names that have been here, they've taken time out of their day, answered my emails, all the things that you need to do to support a student or a coworker, they have done, and I'm just so thankful for them. Then on the contractor side, Amentum and Maso, the self-censor has completely welcomed me in and taken me under her wing. And I would not be here today without her, and including the rest of my team. They have been here for more than 10 years each. This research has been going on for a long time. I'm fairly new here. They have been so patient and guided me through this process, and I'm so appreciative of that. And then lastly, all of my professors, mentors, family, and friends along the way. It truly takes a community to raise a kid, and let me say that I'm the example of that. With that, I am so excited to talk to you today. Thank you for being here, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jacob. Can you go on to the next? Thank you. So before we get to some of your questions, just a brief overview on the NASA Tech Transfer System. Like Jacob's technology, we are marketing technologies to industry, and you can find those on the NASA Technology Transfer portal at the website shown below. And currently we have over 1,200 patented technologies in a lot of different categories. Next slide. So when you dig down, searching by keyword into a topic you want, you will receive specific information on individual technologies like is shown here, which will give you the title, of course, the description, applications, benefits, and then a status of whether the technology is patented or patent pending, as well as some contact information to get further information to determine if the technology is suitable for your purposes, your industry, the product in the future. Go ahead. Next one. And there's a link on this website where you can actually apply for a patent license, make use or sell the technology, and that can be done online. The application's received. You will naturally be in touch with the center that has the technology. You can exchange information on the technology. You can talk to the inventor. We can arrange that. We can arrange demonstrations of prototypes. And when things allow, maybe even a site visit to meet with the inventor and see the technology in action. If all goes well, you can negotiate terms of a license agreement, sign it, and execute it, and hopefully your company will be successful in commercializing the technology and getting it out there to the world. Next one. And as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to talk about the planned NASA Lunar Nutrition Challenge. NASA exploring the possibility of opening a centennial challenge currently titled Lunar Nutrition Challenge. And the purpose of the challenge is to incentivize public, academia, and industry to participate in the demonstration and development of food-producing technologies, systems, or approaches that can provide food to the planet and space explorers on future long-term duration missions. The results of this challenge may even support NASA's future exploration goals, which include habitats on the Moon and Mars, like Jacob talked about earlier. And then this is a quick slide. The challenge is currently in development. There's a RFI, a request for information, that should be released later this year in the next couple months. And if all goes well, registration will open late 2020. And it's a competitive challenge. You can, form teams and compete to win money. And there'll be several rounds of competition. And then there's some contact information for you if you want to follow up on this with the website at nasa.gov/winit and the email address below. And if you have questions, please feel free to email them to us or me, and we'll be sure to follow up with those as well. So thank you for participating, and have a good afternoon. Thanks.